Hi, Steve here from Property Hive. In this video, we're going to look at how we can hook up our Google Maps API key. So things like maps and map search work inside Property Hive. Here we are inside a property record, and you'll notice down below the map, it's currently disabled. And if you were to output the map on the front end or use map search or radial search or anything that's to do with Google mapping, you would see the same. What we need to do is under Property Hive settings, general map, is add our Google Maps API key. You'll notice there's two. We've got the Google Maps API key and we've got the Google Maps Geocoding API key. You'll notice also we can select different providers. So Google Maps by default requires an API key. OpenStreetMaps, however, doesn't. So let's select OpenStreetMap, go back to the property in question, and you'll notice there's now no error. We can use the map as we want to without entering an API key. If we do want to use Google though, we need to get an API key. So the first thing we're going to do is go to change the provider. And like I said earlier, there are two keys here, one for Google Maps and one for geocoding. Now the difference is the first one is used for maps that are outputs to the browser. So the one we just saw on the property edit page. If you output the map on the property details page or use map search, any of the maps that you can click and drag around need this API key. Now geocoding, for those that don't know, geocoding is where you have an address. So 123 High Street, Birmingham, and you want to get the latitude and longitude coordinates from that address. That is what geocoding is. And for this, we need a separate API key. And the reason is all to do with how it's locked down by site so that other people can't use the API key. And that will become clearer in a second. This second section will also only show when relevant if you're using an add-on or feature that has geocoding functionality. So the first two that come to mind is the import add-on and the radial search add-on. Both of them can need the ability to get an address and convert it to coordinates. So if you're not using any of those features or you've just installed Property Hive for the first time, you'll likely just see this first key. So where do we get the keys? If you do a Google for Google Maps API console, click into there. Now, depending on if you've done this in the past or not, it might ask you to create a project. But in this case, it's given me an API key straight away. So I can copy this and paste that into here. And then this is what I was talking about earlier about why we need two separate keys. So the front end top Maps API key needs a HTTP referrer restriction, and that is going to be our website address. So in this case, I would just take this test site that I'm on, restrict the key, and you will find all keys under keys and credentials. So here is the one we just created. Now, if we save that and go to the property now that API key is in place, we should hopefully see the map works. Perfect. And we can click around and set the latitude and longitude and do all the stuff we need to do. That's fine. Now, if we need the second key for the geocoding, again, we can use OpenStreetMap. It's not as reliable as Google Maps, but it does work and certainly works better in some areas than others. But if we want to use Google Maps, we can go back to our API console. We can go to keys and credentials, and we can create credentials API key. And the difference this time is the restriction that we apply. So it's given us the code. We can copy that. We can put that in. Great. If we close this, you'll see it's created this second key here, but it's just got the exclamation mark, which means it's got no restrictions. So we're going to click into that. And instead of a HTTP restriction this time, we're going to give it an IP address restriction because the geocoding requests are done on the server. So it needs an IP address restriction. And all we're going to do is we're going to add the IP address of your server or your site that it's hosted on. Once that's done, and we've copied the keys in, we can click Save Changes. And going forward, maps and geocoding requests should work fine.